welcome to Friends That Invest. You're joined today by your host, Sim Kaur. I'm wildly passionate about all things investing and personal finance, and this is a very special episode because I am diving into the fact that at 29 years old, I am, for all intents and purposes, financially retired. It feels so good to say it. It doesn't feel real. It feels like I'm having an out-of-body experience where I'm kind of watching someone talk about it. Like there's this other girl called Sim. But I'm just so incredibly, obviously, grateful and happy and blessed. And I don't take it for granted. But I wanted to use this episode to explain a little bit about how I did it. But if you follow this journey, you've probably heard me or seen the experience and the journey. So I won't harp on that for too long. And instead, I really want to focus on what worked to get me to FIRE and what didn't work so that you can kind of fast track your own experience, learn from my mistakes, and then also just like hopefully feel like it is something that is doable and possible. And disclaimer, I was able to FIRE in 10 years. I am not suggesting that that is normal or that you can also retire in 10 years time, but maybe it looks like in another 20 years or another 25 years. Maybe you retire at 55 rather than 65 or 45. And so without further ado, let me get into my FIRE journey and hopefully you find this episode very helpful. Now, to kick things off in chapter 1, I want to explain my FIRE number and how I kind of got to this place. When it comes to FIRE, if you go back and listen to our past episodes on financial independence, retire early, I explain the idea of how you end up having a investment portfolio mainly made up of index funds. You can have a satellite portfolio if you want as well of other companies that I have done, but big chunk of my portfolio is index funds. And the idea behind it is your portfolio, in theory, should go up 7%. You sell down 3% of your portfolio to 4% of your portfolio. And the difference between that is the buffer. And so that accounts for inflation. And then every single year you are able to draw down kind of the same amount and you can essentially retire. It is like receiving a pension. It is like pulling down your 401k or your KiwiSaver or your ISA. The whole idea is that you have almost like a pot of gold, like a trust fund, that you pull out from every single year and it doesn't diminish. When I heard about that, I was like, this has my name written all over it. This is for me, sign me up. And when I read about different FIRE numbers, I kind of first came across it with Mr. Money Mustache and Vicki Robbins from Your Money or Your Life, the book. And naturally I was like, well, I probably want $1 million. And if I can draw down 4% of that, that's $40K a year. And I think it's worth remembering that when I first started that, I was quite young. And so my expenses were so low. So the idea of living off $40,000 a year was so doable. Even only up till a couple of years ago, my expenses were $50,000 a year because my mortgage was low. I didn't have high expenses. And besides traveling, there wasn't a lot I was spending money on. And so when I got to that $1 million investment mark, my life had changed so much by then. I was a working optometrist. I was running businesses. One of them was Friends That Invest, and life had just caught up and I was not saving as much as I thought I would. And my lifestyle had just inflated, not significantly, but I had a Mazda instead of a broken down Suzuki Swift. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then all that to say, I then pushed out my FIRE number. I was like, I want to have $2.5 million invested and I want to be able to draw down 4% of that. And then when I reached that number, I was so happy, but I was also very scared and it just didn't feel like enough to quit and pull the trigger with. As I've spoken with other people that have reached FIRE, it seems like a common occurrence where we'll get closer to the goal and then you're like, no, I can't do it. I cannot pull the trigger. That's just insane. Stop working. I cannot do that. And so you push out the goal. You're like, maybe if I have 3 million invested, maybe if I have more than that invested, I'll talk to people that were I had $10 million and I wanted to wait until I had 20. There'll always be more. And so I sat down again and kind of looked at my expenses and realized I was spending around $120,000 a year. And when I looked at how much I needed to be comfortable, I was like, if I can draw down $150,000 every single year, then I'm good. I have reached fire. And if that can be like a consistent thing, like I'm happy. I'm happy with the lifestyle that I have right now. You know, it's not super luxurious. Again, I spend on travel, I spend on jewelry, but I don't really have like fancy clothes, fancy car, fancy house. And so when I reached the ability to draw down $150,000 a year, that was in February 2026. The market had done incredibly well, and I reached fire. And it's made up of my investment portfolio of broad market index funds, few individual companies, not hugely, and my investment portfolio of homes. I have 2 rental properties, and I have the home that I live in. And so with all of those, I was like, oh, I can actually retire. And it was such a personal battle that I had in terms of if I should tell people, because no way, shape, or form is that a relatable or even aspirational thing to share, to be like, hey, I'm retired and I'm 29. Like, no one's going to read that on their way to work and be like, oh, that's really nice. Yay. It happened. And then my wedding was coming up, and I was like, maybe I'll share it after the wedding. And then after my wedding, the Iran war started, and then the fuel crisis started, and I was like, it was really not the right time to share it right now. And more time went on. And then eventually I decided, I think it is worth sharing, because I don't see a lot of people that look like myself within the FIRE community. If like a white guy reached FIRE at this age, like when guys sell their companies and then they're like, hey, I have $10 million and I've retired, it's like, yay, go him. Like, I'm really happy for them. That's so great. They've obviously done incredibly well for themselves. But I just didn't see a lot of women in that space. And if anything, the female entrepreneurs that I know, a lot of them are still in that building phase. And the ones that have sold their companies and kind of retired early, they keep a very low profile because they have retired with a lot more money. And so they probably want to protect that. In my experience, because of the work that I do with friends that invest, and like, I already share my investments. I already share how much I've been investing. I've been sharing my net worth since I had like $8,000 at the start of my journey. And because I've been so public about it, despite my, accountant and trust lawyers telling me stop sharing, I just felt like it was something I wanted to put out in the world. It's one of those things that you can't take back. And it's one of those things that, like, if I have kids and they ever like search up mum's name, it'll be like, mum retired at 29. Like, what is she telling us about hard work? Like, she was out of the game so early. But I think there is more net positive in sharing it than negative. And so I'm currently comfortable with that decision that I've made to come out in public and share that I've retired. Now, in terms of what worked, 2 things that made a huge difference in reaching FIRE was like tracking my FIRE number every single month. I knew exactly how much I wanted to retire with. Remember, first it was $1 million, then it was like 2.5. But every single month I would track my investment portfolio and I would track my debt because I have mortgage debt. And when I realized, okay, every single month, it's kind of growing. It's kind of getting closer to my goal. It was like such a motivator for me. I felt like I was gamifying it, and I would be like, okay, what other side hustles can I do to continue to grow this? What else can I build? What can I do with my time? Like, if you've listened to my past episodes, I am like a side hustle connoisseur. Anything and everything I have, well, not anything and everything, most things I have tried, and I have found a way to like make money here, try this, build this, do like tutoring and online businesses and selling online businesses and all of it. And then of course, like sharing that journey on Friends That Invest was in itself like a positive feedback loop, because I was sharing what I was doing. And then onto the back of that, I ended up writing a book, and I ended up getting like brand deals and like doing workshops. And so that was able to eventually, after a couple of years of doing Friends That Invest, I think 18 months in, I was able to start generating income from that business. I didn't pull out the income until a couple of years after that. But then I was able to take like 50K, 80K, 100K, 180K, 200K. So I was able to pull a salary from friends that invest, which without a doubt was like adding gasoline to the fire of reaching fire. I don't want to ever come across like I was able to reach fire in 10 years by only scrimping and saving and only being an optometrist. That is not the case whatsoever. Maybe I would have reached it in 20 years or 25 years, but 10 years was because I was also building businesses on the side. And so by tracking my performance and increasing my earning power, I think those things together were like such a rocket in terms of me reaching that goal faster. And I do not think I would have gotten there without like doing either of them. The tracking kept me, I guess, on track and like gamified it. And then increasing my earning power was like the thing that I needed to be like, okay, I'm at $280,000 invested. What do I need to do to get that extra $20,000 so that I can be at $300,000 invested? You know, like it's kind of like when you first start saving and you have like $75 saved and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could transfer $25 and turn that into $100 saved? It was the same concept. Now, the things that did not work in my favor when it came to fire, the first was that day-to-day budgeting was not something that I could keep up with. I did it at the start of the journey and I was so diligent with like tracking every single dollar, every single thing. And I think it worked for a while, but I realized that just by tracking my net worth, I could figure out, is my savings going up or is it going down? Are my investments going up or are they going down? It didn't really make a difference to like track the $7 coffee I had or track the like dinner I went out with my friends. And if anything, it would just make me really sad. And I was just being like kind of in a slump. And you can't live 10, 20, 30 years in a slump because you're like putting into your tracking device, like, didn't realize I was going to go out for dinner and like have a drink with my friends, like $50. Oh, hate myself. You know, like that's just not conducive to a happy life and it is not sustainable. So anything that wasn't sustainable to fire, I had to let go of. The other thing that did not work for me when it came to fire was giving myself a hard timeline. I kind of pushed out fire by an entire decade compared to what I wanted. I think deep down, I always knew I wanted to fire by 30, but I kept publicly and personally saying by 40. I'd like to retire by 40. And to be honest, I'd like to not have any job at all by 40 and not have to like be interested in building. But by pushing out the fire number to 40, I was not putting so much pressure on myself. And so when it did happen earlier for me, it was like, oh, this is a great surprise. Because of course, like I was going off the basis that the markets would return 7% per year. And so when the market from, Feb 2026 in comparison to Feb 2025 went up like almost 36%, I could not have predicted that. And so that like completely skyrocketed my portfolio returns. So again, like there's a lot of things that aren't in my control. Another thing that I did that I would have done differently is I think I wouldn't have stressed so much about getting there, and I would have probably spent more time optimizing for a happier day-to-day life, like trying to focus on the outcome of fire. And don't like yell at me, but I wish I had enjoyed the journey instead of just waiting for the destination, because so much of reaching a goal is like the enjoyment of the goal. And when you reach the goal, it wasn't as like exciting as I thought it would be. And it was actually quite destabilizing because I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? Like, I guess I can stop and like shut down my businesses and like stay at home. And for about a week, if that, I like trialed out being retired. Like I didn't go on the internet. I didn't work. I was kind of like on leave from friends that invest and like anything else I was doing. Didn't take any meetings and didn't do any advisory work. And I was just like pottering around the house, like going to the beach, reading a lot of books. And I remember specifically being in the kitchen and I was like, I should probably clean up because like I'm home, I'm free, like I'm retired. And I looked at the stuff on the microwave, like on top of the microwave, and I was like, I should probably put that stuff away. And then I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to clean up this kitchen. Like, I would rather just work and build things and be happy and have a cleaner. And that's just, I think, what I enjoy more than being a housewife and retiring early. And so, like, within a week, I kind of like decided, like, no, I'm not going to stop working, which completely defeats the whole freaking purpose of retiring. But I thought I was going to like lay on a beach and read my books and hang out with my dog. And I did all those things, and they took about like 2 hours, 3 hours at most. And I was like, what do I do with the rest of the day, every single day? And I would wake up without, like, I guess, having purpose. And it was a slippery slope. And I kind of said to my husband, I was like, I actually think that what I would do retired is just friends that invest and going and like speaking to kids about like financial literacy and running this brand, like managing the team. Like I love that kind of stuff. I love writing books. I love making content. I think Friends That Invest is my retirement job. And my husband was like, well, I guess that's what you do. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. But had I known that there was no need to rush to retirement, maybe I would have enjoyed life a little bit more leading up to it. Like, there were trips that I did not take because I was trying to save. And even now, like, I'll sometimes be like, oh, like, it's better to save that money than to spend it. I just wish I hadn't been so hard on myself. And everyone says that. They're always like, it always works out. Just enjoy the journey. And I kind of wish I did. But when I look back at all of it, you know, you might be listening and going, Sim, would you recommend like certain steps or ways of us to like figure out what fire looks like or how we can reach it? I would honestly say figure out your number and work backwards. Like, what is your idealistic lifestyle? And don't assume that you're never going to work. Assume that maybe you work on things you are passionate about and that you're not aiming to become completely jobless, but you're aiming to become work optional. So what would that look like? What kind of life would that look like where maybe you're just working part-time or you're working the job? My friends and I like to call it our communist jobs. Like, what job would you do if we lived in a communist society and everyone's salary was the same? Mine would probably be being an art teacher. But let's say you were like, okay, well, if I was an art teacher for like private art classes that I had, maybe I'm only working 3 days a week. What do I need to earn to supplement that income so that I can take those 2 days off? And maybe that's $20,000 a year. You times that by the number 25, and that is how much you need to have invested. And so when you do the maths, that's $500,000 invested rather than like $1 million or $2 million. And so I feel like FIRE is no longer as applicable to me as like this idea of financial independence work optional rather than financial independence retire early. Because yes, from like a purely financial perspective, I am retired. My investments, I can pull them down, I can live off them. I sell some, that's my holidays done, that's my mortgage paid, that's my bills. However, right now, I love working. And I think, you know, those people, and they're always like old men in suits with like grey hair. And they're like, oh, I don't have to work, but I just work not for the money, but like for the game. That used to like make me gag a little bit. But I realized I kind of relate to it. Like, I love working because it is just so fun to have a goal and to try and achieve it and be like, this is the goal for the company this year. And then like work with a team to try and achieve that goal. It is so enjoyable because it gives me purpose and it gets me up every day. And nothing is worse than like being aimless in life. And it kind of makes me feel like I understand trust fund kids because they're always so like sad and aimless, and it's because they don't have a reason to get up. Like, they don't have to work. And I like to think of my granddad, who even in retirement is so active and like reads a lot, uses his brain, he mentors people. He's not in like formal work, but he's just kept his brain so sharp and he keeps learning. And I just see my future as like going back to school, doing projects I enjoy, building businesses for fun, selling them for fun. Just like anything extra I make is just like the cherry on top. And I just think it is such a privilege, and I'm so blessed to live in this exact time, in this world where the ability to learn all of this and the access to all of this is free. Like, you're literally watching this or listening to this for free to know that this is possible. And I got to listen to it and learn that it was possible from other podcasts and blogs when I was younger. Like, it is just such a bad time to be alive, but also such a great time to be alive. And so with that, I guess this is like part 1 of my retirement series. Part 2, I'm going to answer your most commonly asked Q&A when it comes to FIRE. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop them below and I will answer them in the next episode. And with that, I'll see you next week.